Hi everyone. Welcome to the webinar that we'll be giving this afternoon about our graduate area manager programme. Just before we get started, I thought it might be beneficial for you to get to know us a little bit, as we're going to probably be talking to you for the next hour or so. So myself and my colleague Chloe are on the call. So I'm George. Now, we've both been at ALDI for quite some time and looked after the graduate programme for going on for 3 years now. So I joined ALDI at the start of 2018 to work as part of the graduate programme, and I've been working on that programme recruiting industrial placement students as well as graduates into the business since May 2018. I've always worked in recruitment, so prior to working for ALDI, I worked for an agency recruiting, and before that I worked in retail myself for 7 years. So started after university as a store assistant and worked my way up to become a store manager, and then after that an area manager. But I'll hand over to Chloe and let her introduce herself before we get started with the presentation.
Great, thanks George, and can't see anyone on the screen, but lovely to be speaking to you all today. As George said, I'm Chloe, and I'm also from the graduate recruitment team here at ALDI. I've been with ALDI for just over 4 years now. I've always worked in our HR department. I've been looking after the recruitment alongside George and the team for our area manager positions for about 2 years now, just over 2 years. And prior to that, I've got experience within ALDI across our employee benefits and health and wellbeing and employee engagement. And then prior to that, my background was in education primarily, so a little bit of a different slant and different experience to George. But we're really looking forward to telling you a little bit more about our area manager graduate programme this afternoon. So I'll hand back over to George.
Great, thanks Chloe. So this afternoon we're going to take you through a presentation that we've made on how to succeed in our graduate area manager recruitment process. We're going to talk to you about our graduate programme as well, and talk you through the process from start to finish for this role, and hopefully give you some tips that will help you to excel in the recruitment process. If you've got any questions throughout the session, please just put them into the question box and we'll do our best to answer all of the questions at the end. And there will be plenty of time to make sure that everyone's questions are answered.
Okay, great. So you might have heard about our graduate area manager programme before. It's definitely got a reputation for being fast-paced and challenging, giving you real responsibility right from the get-go, and that's something that we're really proud of with our area manager programme. We give you a huge amount of responsibility as brand new graduate area managers from, as I say, right from the start. So your first few weeks in the role will be spent getting to know your colleagues within the stores. You will also learn about our business model. As you're aware, we are ever growing in the UK and are close to reaching 1,000 stores now within the UK, which is very exciting. So really exciting time to join the business. After 15 weeks, you will have a set of keys for your first store that you'll be looking after. So a really quick progression route to looking after your first store. In terms of the role and where you could go within the role, there are lots of progression routes as touched upon. So you could become a logistics area manager if you've got an interest perhaps in supply chains. You might work in our national head office as a buying manager, for example, a marketing manager, or you might be lucky enough to get a secondment opportunity in the UK or even abroad. And in addition to this, there's lots of development opportunities within the area manager role itself. So we offer our more experienced area managers the opportunity to become trainee area managers, and you can support your new colleagues in their new roles. You might open a brand new store, you might look after a store refurbishment, or you might take on an underperforming store and work on the challenge of turning that around and making that a really high performing store.
So we do have some minimum requirements that we ask for all of our area manager graduates. So personality and people skills that you can bring to the role. We're looking for people who are resourceful, driven, focused, confident, and able to have the confidence to lead others. You know, we look for a 2-1 degree from all applicants. So you know, whether you've gone on to complete a master's afterwards, we do just ask for that 2-1 undergraduate degree. If you've gone on to complete a master's afterwards, fantastic. we ask for 96 UCAS points as well, or 63 Scottish Highers. If you've studied outside of the UK, you don't need to provide evidence of those UCAS points. It is just for UK-based qualifications. What we offer on the graduate programme is a £44,000 starting salary. This raises to, after 4 years, 78,000. A fully expensed ALDI or BMW. We've actually just started introducing electric cars as well to our fleet, so you could have the opportunity of driving one of those. Alongside the pay and the benefits that we offer, we've got a health cash plan, some fantastic lifestyle perks as well, so discounted gym memberships, cinema tickets, all that kind of stuff, as well as shopping vouchers and coupons. Opportunity to travel the world. I know Chloe just touched on secondment opportunities there, but there's a possibility of UK secondments as well as European or international secondments as well if you are one of the high performers in your region. We do offer an excellent work-life balance, so you get as a minimum 5 weeks holiday every year plus bank holidays. There's also an option to buy extra holiday if you are planning a long holiday, for example. We also offer sabbatical opportunities once you've been in the business for a significant amount of time as well. And we do offer a huge amount of training and support. It goes without saying that coming out of university, you will need that support to be able to take on a management role at this level. So we've got a 12-month training programme where you'll have a mentor from day one, and there's support there for you to achieve your full potential in the business.
Okay, so hopefully George and I have piqued your interest a little bit in the area manager role. So now we're going to talk to you a little bit more about our application process and give you a few hints and tips with regards to all of our stages in the recruitment process. So you can see on the screen there, we do have 5 stages within our recruitment process. And so we will ask you to complete an online application to start with, followed by an online psychometric test, a video interview, followed by a group assessment, which currently is being conducted virtually, and then a final interview before you would receive a job offer and start working within the business. And so, as I say, we'll now talk you through each of these stages in a little bit more detail.
So first of all, you'll start with the application form. Applying to work at ALDI is exciting, and we can understand that completing an application form can be quite daunting. So we've put together a few handy hints and tips for you to have in mind when you fill out your application form. So the first thing I'd advise you to do is to reflect on and really think about yourself, what you like at work or outside of work, and how you behave in different scenarios, what decisions you make in difficult scenarios as well. The first test you complete as part of our online application form is called ALDI Smart Styles, and that's roughly 20 to 30 questions, and each kind of looks at how well suited you are to the way we work here at ALDI. There's nothing to be afraid of though, so absolutely enjoy them. Then we also have a situational judgment test, which shows us how you would approach typical workplace situations. So you'd be given a scenario of something happening in store, and we would just like your opinion of what you would do in that scenario. As well. And then after you've completed those 2 tests, we have an open-ended application form. It allows you to tell us everything you know about ALDI and why you want to be an area manager and join our team. So we ask quite a different variety of questions about what motivates you, what inspires you, achievements that you're really proud of. So you could mention if you've done Duke of Edinburgh, if you're part of a sports team as well, or if you've done volunteering, anything that gives us a glimpse of your leadership skills or your experience in teamwork. That's what we're really interested in at this stage. I know there's a lot to get in here as well, so there's absolutely no need to rush it. There's no deadline on completing an application once you've started it. Just make sure you read through it or get someone else to read it through for you. Check it all makes sense, check your spelling as well, because our application form doesn't check your spelling for you, and check that you've provided all the information we've asked for regarding your qualifications as well, because that can sometimes hold up the process. If you maybe haven't put your degree details in there or haven't put your A-level equivalents in there, it can take us a little bit longer just to process your application.
Okay, so moving on to the next stage in our recruitment process, and that is a video interview. That's a pre-recorded video interview, so you will need to find somewhere quiet where you're not going to be disturbed by the dog barking perhaps, or your phone ringing or that kind of thing. So have a think about where you want to record your video, and make sure that you're not going to be disturbed for the duration. It won't take very long, and the video itself, the interview itself, will last for around about 5 minutes or so, and you'll be asked 6 questions as part of that interview. Have a think about the way you present yourself as well, so almost treat it as a real life interview. Dress the part, look smart, and make sure that there isn't too much clutter behind you. We understand that everyone's at home at the moment, working from home and studying from home, but try to make that great first impression when you are recording your video interview. We also want to get to know you as a person, so try and show your personality. We receive a lot of applications every year, as you would probably anticipate, so it's important that you try to stand out. And in addition to that, think about giving examples and answering our questions with something that we'll remember. In addition, a big piece of advice would be have a pen and paper to hand with you when you are recording your video interview. You'll be able to see the question that you're asked pop up on screen, and you'll have a short amount of time to consider your answer before you then have to record your answer. So you might well want to jot down a few notes just to help you when it comes to giving your answer to the camera. Try to be concise as well. You won't have an awful long time in which to record your answers, so try to be concise with them. ALDI is all about efficiency. Don't get distracted by the countdown timer. Try not to worry about that too much, and make sure that you use open and warm body language. Look at the camera and address the camera as though there is someone in front of you and listening to your answers.
So the next stage of the recruitment process is a group assessment, and we're currently holding all of our group assessments over Microsoft Teams. So even though it's not face-to-face, it is still really important to prepare before you do come to the assessment. So think about how you want to present yourself and how you want to engage with us as well on the day. We do send an email to you before you come to the assessment with a bit of pre-work on there. We do that so you have something to think about in advance, and you will be asked to deliver a short presentation on the day to the assessors. We're not scary, we're not here to trip you up in any way. We do genuinely want you to do well at the assessment stage, so relax and enjoy yourself as much as you can do. We definitely want to know what you know about ALDI, and that you have researched the business and that you have got a passion for the business as well. But I definitely give other candidates an opportunity to showcase their skills too. You'll then be asked to take part in an individual task that becomes a group discussion. So I think it goes without saying, it is almost stating the obvious, that we are looking for leaders in the graduate scheme, but you also need to be able to work well with a variety of different people in the team. So there is a fine balance to strike between being a leader and being dominant in the group in a positive way and also a negative way. So just think about how you want to portray your leadership skills on the day as well.
Okay, and then the final stage of our recruitment process is a final interview. So if you've reached this stage in our process, you have done really, really well. And this interview is a one-to-one interview with the managing director of the region to which you've applied at ALDI. As you'd probably anticipate from that job title, they are quite senior, or very senior people within the business. They're the most senior person within the region, but try not to let that put you off or make you feel intimidated. They are humans, and they are nice people, and they want to get to know you at that interview as best they can. So approach that interview with confidence. They're going to want to get to know you firstly as a person, as I mentioned. So prepare to talk about yourself, be open and honest. You'll be expected to talk about your education, your extracurricular activities, maybe part-time work that you might have had, even your background perhaps. So as I say, be prepared to be open and honest and answer the questions that they have for you. The second area of the interview is, as you would probably anticipate, being able to talk about ALDI. These managing directors, most of them have worked for ALDI for a really long time. Most of them were area managers when they started with the business and have worked their way up within the business. Even our CEO was in fact an area manager when he first started out with ALDI. So they're very passionate about ALDI. They know the business inside out. So it's really important for you to get across that passion and enthusiasm for ALDI as well. So do your homework, do your research into the company, and have a look at news articles that might be useful, just to show that you've got a bit of a commercial awareness. So have a look at maybe what some of our competitors are up to, and think about some of the challenges that we as a retail sector are facing at the moment, just to show that you've really done your homework and that you're really interested in the sector that we're in. And then finally, a main part of the interview will be some competency-based interview questions. And these competencies are the things that make up an ALDI person, and they're the skills and attributes that we're looking to see from our candidates. You may have heard of a competency-based interview before, maybe have had one. If you haven't, then there's lots of information online that you can have a read of just to help you prepare for this kind of interview. So our advice would be to have a think about some examples that you could give for competency-based questions. And as George has touched upon, leadership is one of the skills and the things that we are looking for potential of in our candidates. Have a look at our recruitment process and have a think about what other key skills you think an ALDI area manager should possess, and then have a think about a time in your life when you have demonstrated such a skill. These examples can come from any part of your life, whether they are from university, maybe a group project, a sports team, a society, a club, a hobby that you've got, a part-time job, voluntary work, even your personal life. Any example is fine. Just make sure you're thinking about structuring your answer nice and clearly. And again, online there are lots of resources to help you with that structure. Another tip, which is an obvious one, but make sure you give yourself plenty of time. Now, at the moment, a lot of our interviews are taking place online, which makes things a lot easier, but do check your technology beforehand, and make sure that everything's working, make sure your camera's working, your microphone. And as with the pre-recorded video interview, which I spoke about briefly before, make sure you present yourself just as smartly as you would do if you were meeting somebody in person. Just because it's a video interview doesn't mean you shouldn't dress any more smartly. Remember, it's an interview, so you're trying to impress that person that is interviewing you. And also, at the end of the interview, have a few questions for your interviewer. They will expect you to have some questions for them. So have a think about what questions you want to ask about the role or about the business.
Thanks, Chloe. So we'll start answering the questions that have been put into the live chat, but please feel free to carry on putting your questions into the chat function for us. So I'll start off by answering Michelle. So Michelle asked, are master's students welcome to apply for the graduate role? Absolutely, Michelle. All we ask for is the 2-1 undergraduate degree, and I would tend to assume you've got that if you're on a master's programme. As long as you have got that 2-1 undergraduate for a graduate role, or if you're applying as a career changer, we ask that you have a 2-2 and management experience already. You're more than welcome to apply for the position. Okay. So Henrietta's asked, can you apply again to ALDI after being rejected? Yes, you're more than welcome to apply again. We just ask that you wait 12 months. Now, the reason we ask for you to wait 12 months is to give you time to work on the skills that maybe we've not seen at assessment centre or at video interview or at your application. And that's because we think 12 months is a good amount of time for you to go away. Think about, you know, where you maybe were requiring a bit of development, We give feedback to anyone who's been to a group assessment with us. So if you've been to a group assessment and been unsuccessful, we would have given you that feedback if you've asked for it. And you can go away and work on that feedback for the following 12 months. Unfortunately, just due to the volume of candidates we have, application form, we can't give you feedback on that because we haven't met you, and we can't give really clear feedback on an application form, if that makes sense.
Shall I take the next one, George?
Yeah.
There's a couple I've noticed, a couple of people are asking about when you can apply if you graduate in 2022. So the earliest date in which you could apply if you're graduating next summer would be September. So we open our recruitment in September for roles starting the following year. So if you are graduating next summer, then we would encourage you to begin an application in September. And although we do recruit pretty much all year round, our spaces do fill quite quickly. So we would highly encourage you to apply early to give yourself the best possible chance.
Yeah, what I'd also say on that is, if the region is closed at the moment, on our website you can register your interest for that region, and it means as soon as we press that on button to turn their recruitment on for the 2022 intake, you'll get a notification and you'll be able to go on to our website and apply straight away, and kind of get yourself a little bit ahead of the curve and a bit ahead of the candidates who are maybe waiting till October, November to start applying. And it means you'll just go through our recruitment process a lot quicker as well, because we won't be anywhere near as busy at that initial first couple of weeks in September compared to how busy it does get for us later on in autumn. We've also had a question about international students, and we don't, as a rule, sponsor visas. So if you've got the right to work in the UK, you're more than welcome to apply for a position with us. But unfortunately, as a business, we don't sponsor international residency visas. Okay.
There's a question here I'm just seeing about someone with a 2-2 degree, a master's student and 3 years experience at a FTSE 100 company. Can I apply? So we have in a short answer to your question, you wouldn't be able to apply for our graduate area manager position, unfortunately, because that 2-1 degree is a requirement for that role. However, in your accounts experience, if you have management experience of people, then we would encourage you to look at our career changer program, and that program it's the area manager program, but for career changer candidates who have management experience and leadership experience, and we look for a minimum of 2 years experience managing people in a fast-paced environment. So we'd encourage you to have a look at that program if that applies to you.
Thanks. And then Foster's asked, he's never led before but would love to learn if this is a possibility on the scheme. Absolutely. And you know, you could have taken a leadership role in a group project at university or as part of a society, and those are valid examples to draw on as part of any interview situation, not just ALDIs. We absolutely give you enough training to lead without having that prior experience, but you need to demonstrate you have the qualities to lead, and that is, you know, listening to other people, taking their ideas on board at the group assessment, being able to set a strategy for the group as well. So, you know, it could be volunteering to set a timer, it could be taking notes for the group, you know, setting a structure for the discussion of, you know, I think for 5 minutes we should talk about this, and then after 5 minutes we're going to plan X, Y, and Z. And all those little things do add up and show us that you are capable of leading and directing other people. So you don't need that prior leadership experience, but you need to be able to showcase that you have the potential to lead to us at that group assessment stage.
There's another question here about entry requirements again. So someone is asking, Marion's asking, if you don't fill the UCAS points criteria, can you apply for the area manager program for career changers, especially for someone that has a lot of experience? Yes, is the answer. We don't have a UCAS point requirement for our career changer program, so we would absolutely encourage you to look at that program, definitely.
And I've got another question here about entry requirements as well. It's from Callum. He says, can we use a mix of AS levels and A levels? So we only look at your A levels for UCAS points. So that is your top 3 A level qualifications, or it could be your top 3 BTECs or Scottish Highers, Irish Leaving Certificates, whatever it is that you've completed at 18. Equally, you know, we take access to higher education courses as well for UCAS points. So it's whatever your highest sixth form or college level qualification is what we would need to use for UCAS. Nicoletta's also asked, if we've not completed our degree yet, but we expect 2-1, can we apply for the position? Yes. We offer candidates provisional job offers on the condition of them getting that 2-1 degree. So, for example, we've offered people roles who have yet to graduate, and they don't start until they have graduated with that 2-1 degree. So absolutely, if you're on track for a 2-1, please feel free to apply for the role.
A question here about whether the applications are open to international students, and yes, they are. You do need the right to work in the UK, but if you've if you've studied a degree abroad or have done your A-level equivalents abroad, then as George touched upon before, you are still able to apply for the position, and we won't need to ask you about UCAS points conversion, because obviously that isn't possible if you did study those qualifications abroad.
Yeah, Catherine's got a question about driving tests, and I've seen a couple of other questions about driving licence as well. So to join the business and start, you would need your driving licence. Obviously, given the current circumstances, that's quite hard for some people, because driving tests have been postponed, and unless you're a key worker, you can't carry on with your driving lessons. So we absolutely are taking that into account. If people have been successful and they've received a job offer, we've just delayed their start date so they can join the business once they have completed their driving test successfully. So it doesn't have an impact on your application, it just might have an impact on when you can start with the business. And that's purely because we expect you to be quite mobile in the role, and travelling between the different stores you'll be working in, it's quite essential. So that's why we give you the car to support you throughout your time with the business, and we do expect you to be able to drive to and from the store from your first day with us.
Another question, we might have touched upon this one in part, but someone's asked if the applications are open to master's students, which I think we have covered in part, but just to reiterate, yes, we do accept applications from people who are master's students, but you would need an undergraduate degree in which to apply for the graduate area manager role, and a 2-2 in an undergraduate degree if you're applying for the career changer pathway. And Michelle's asked, international students who can't calculate their UCAS, as touched upon, that's fine. Don't worry about that, Michelle. We understand that you can't convert them, so that is fine.
Yeah, there's a question as well about application deadlines, and I realise we've not touched on that as part of the presentation. So the way our recruitment windows work is we open for our graduate scheme at the start of September, and our industrial placement scheme opens a little bit earlier, so it's at the beginning of June. Now, we don't have any firm close dates for any of our schemes. We recruit until the roles are filled, essentially. So that's why some of our regions are still open, because they still have vacancies, and some of our more popular regions tend to be open for a much shorter period of time. So one of those would be Bolton, the Bolton region, which covers Greater Manchester and Cheshire. That tends to have a high volume of applications because it's got a lot of universities there, and it is quite a big city as well that a lot of people want to live and work in. So we tend to only have that live as a region for candidates who apply for a couple of months a year, just because of the volumes that we do get, and because it's such a small geographical region as well. We don't have a lot of new store openings there, so there's not always a need for a lot of area managers. However, our Atherstone region is the one that encompasses our head office. It's a huge geographical region, and there's lots of opportunities for further development there, so we tend to take a lot more area manager graduates into Atherstone, for an example for you. So there's not a hard and fast deadline of when you should do your application. I would just do it as soon as you can, is my advice, because we can't tell you for sure when the region will have filled their roles for the year.
So Finley has asked about how many applicants normally make it to video interview out of those who start their online application. We're not able to give away exact details and stats, I'm afraid, Finley, in terms of how many people reach each stage in our recruitment process. But we do, obviously there are a number of candidates who will fail, unfortunately, at each recruitment stage. And then as we get down towards the final stage, which is the final interview stage, the fewest numbers of candidates will attend that final interview, as you would probably anticipate there. But apologies for not being able to provide any further detail on that question, but hopefully that helps a little bit.
Thanks, Chloe. The next question comes from Jessamy. I think you've met Jessamy before, haven't you, Chloe?
I recognise your name, Jessamy, yes. And I think I can picture you.
So Jessamy's asked, you work 7 days a week. How much can you control your weekly schedule? And is there much opportunity to meet other people who are also on the scheme? So I'll start with the first one. Do you work 7 days a week? Yes, you work on a 7-day rota. It's up to you as an area manager which days you work, though. We leave a lot of diary planning, and you figuring out what days are best to work to you as the area manager. You know your stores better than anyone in head office will do. We ask that you do work one evening shift a week, so that is until 9 or 10 o'clock, and then weekends we are quite flexible, so it tends to work out that you'll work 50% of the weekends in a month. So that could be working a full weekend, working one Saturday, working one Sunday. It depends. It's very much up to you. You also have a cover partner who manages your stores for you whilst you're off. So if there's an emergency on your day off, your cover partner should sort it out for you. And they're also the person who looks after your stores when you're on holiday as well. So you do very much get dedicated time off. Also, how much you control your weekly schedule is completely up to you. You could spend most of your time in an underperforming store because that would be the right thing to do, and you'd probably not need to visit a store that's performing very well that much. A lot of area managers split their weeks and tend to have a day of admin or a day of recruitment as well, because you're responsible for recruitment in all of your stores. It's completely up to you as an area manager how you manage your time. So there isn't a typical week for the area manager programme. And there will be opportunities for you to meet with other new starters. When you join us, you'll have your contract signing, and also you'll have a start date as well. And we tend to have 1 or 2 area managers starting at the same time in each region, so you naturally form a bit of a support group for one another there as well.
Laura has asked a question. She has said that she was unsuccessful at the group assessment stage in November and is unable to apply again for 12 months. You don't have to wait until November, Laura. It depends on when you started your application with us. So if you're able to establish when that was, you should be able to find emails from us in your inbox, hopefully.
Sorry, I'm so, if I recognise someone's name, I'm on there straight away. I met Laura, and
Great.
Laura, you can apply from the 15th of October this year. So hopefully that date is useful and you can make a note of it. Honestly, if I recognise a name, that's it. I'm like, oh, hi, how are you doing? Someone's asked, how many total applicants do you normally recruit? It does depend, Amina, on each region's requirements. I would say this year we're probably going to take on 60 IP students, and I would say probably about 80 to 85 area managers, but that would be a minimum number for us. We sometimes do over recruit. It's not a cap that we set. We do set minimum expectations for how many people we want to recruit and send job offers to. So hopefully that answers your question.
There's a few here that we have touched upon already in answers to other people's questions, but there's one here from Annabelle who is asking, how long after graduating can you apply for the scheme? There isn't a set deadline as to how recently you graduated from, you had to have graduated from university to apply. You are welcome to apply as long as you have those entry requirements that we've spoken about, so that there isn't a specific deadline. And obviously, if you graduated a while ago and has since worked in a number of roles and have potentially management experience, then you might want to consider the career changer programme instead.
Thanks, Chloe. Hannah's asked a question about diversity. So she says, based on my research of the programme, one thing I'm concerned about is the diversity within the graduate programme. Without being too invasive, how diverse is the graduate programme specifically for the successful applicants. I'll be honest, Hannah, it is something that we are very much focused on as a business. I think the last few intakes that we've had have been the most diverse candidates yet. You know, joining the area manager cohort is something that we are conscious of and want to improve on. And we have got a D&I team who are specifically looking at all different ways we can attract and retain candidates from all sorts of different backgrounds in the UK. One of the reasons that I personally think the business should continue holding virtual assessments after the pandemic is because it opens up opportunities to people who maybe wouldn't have been able to afford to travel to Bolton to meet with us because we didn't pay expenses. And I think breaking down those barriers for everyone, regardless of, you know, gender, ethnicity, background, I think it's something that's really important, and it's something that, you know, myself and Chloe are very passionate about, and something that the business is becoming increasingly focused on as well. So hopefully that answers your question to an extent, Hannah.
Olivia has asked a question here about when roles start. So we have 5 start dates throughout the year. So it's really would primarily be up to you as when you would be available to start work with us. Obviously, it might be dependent upon when you're graduating. If you're not due to graduate until next summer, as I know a few of you aren't. So that would be a conversation that you'd have at your final interview, or perhaps after a job offer. You would let the region that you're going to be working in know when you could start, and you would start on our next start date following on from them. And as George touched upon before, we tend to have a few area managers starting on the same start date. So you'll go through some of the kind of induction process together with other new area managers.
Mm-hmm. Fian's asked, how do you remain interested in candidates who have been interviewed over Zoom or Microsoft Teams when interviews are being conducted all day? I've noticed recruiters see non-interest in candidates who interview later in the day. That's actually quite interesting. So our assessment centre that we do put on for graduates, it lasts at the very most 2.5 hours, and we do have breaks between every single session because, you know, looking at a screen for 3 hours, it's very intense for you as candidates to always kind of feel like you need to perform, but it's also intense for us to make sure we are giving people enough attention and the attention that they do deserve. So we do tend to have at least one of us, one extra person on the assessment at the moment. We don't have any distractions. For example, you know, we close all our emails, we make sure we are focused on you. And personally, holding a group assessment is my favourite part of the job, so it's what I get most excited about, especially during the various lockdowns and not being able to go and meet friends and family. It's been great having 8 people come meet me in my dining room. So I personally don't find it difficult to stay engaged. I'm very much interested to hear what all of you've got to say. And if, you know, it does make me question if interviews aren't focused on what's going on, or they're not interested in candidates later in the day, they're probably not assessing you to the level that I personally would want to. So I hope you've not had that experience at an ALDI assessment, is all I will say, Fian.
Yeah, I would just second that, George, because before you said that, that was exactly what I was thinking too. Running the assessments is probably one of the best parts of our jobs. It's great. We absolutely love meeting all of you and running those assessments, and absolutely are really engaged throughout. So as George said, Fian, hopefully you haven't had that experience at an ALDI assessment. Georgina has asked, how many applicants are there on average per position? Again, we can't provide kind of detailed statistics as to application numbers and so on, as touched upon before. It really varies from region to region as well. There are different numbers of positions available across our 11 regions within the business. So some regions might be recruiting for 15 area managers, for example, and some might be recruiting for 10, just to pluck some numbers out of thin air there. But that just gives you an idea as to how it does vary from region to region. But to put your mind at rest a little bit, we don't compare candidates at any stage. It's all about you and your performance at every individual stage in our recruitment process. And we don't have set numbers of people that have to pass or have to fail at any stage in our recruitment process. So, for example, at the group assessment stage that we've just been talking about, when you're on that video call with 7 other candidates, it's not that we have to pass 2 of you, for example, and fail the rest. It's nothing like that. And if everyone meets the criteria that we're looking for, then everybody would pass. It's as simple as that. So I hope that answers your question to an extent, Georgina.
Katie's also asked a question about reasonable adjustments, and can we offer reasonable adjustments throughout the application process? Yes is the answer, and also in the job role as well. So when you begin an application with us, you've got the option to enter any adjustments that you might need. So for example, you may have dyslexia and you may need extra time during tests. One of our recruitment team members will contact you before you start your application, just to make sure that we're clarifying everything we need to give you at every stage in the recruitment process, to make sure we're offering you that fair chance and offering you the reasonable adjustments. Equally, we would offer reasonable adjustments in the role if you needed them. So if for whatever medical reason, for example, you couldn't obtain a driving licence, so something that springs to mind is epilepsy, for example. If you weren't able to get a driving licence, we would obviously remove that requirement for your application. Okay.
Ewan's asked a question about our Bathgate region, which is our Scottish region, who are no longer, well, not currently recruiting. He's noticed on our website, and he's asked, when will that region start recruiting again? We tend to start the recruitment for all of our regions in September. So we would advise going on our recruitment process, our recruitment website before then, as George touched upon before, to register your interest for your preferred region. And that way, when the region starts recruiting again, probably in September, start of September, you will get an email to let you know that you can apply. And as George mentioned, we would encourage you to apply quickly, just so that you can get the ball rolling with your application if you're keen to start working with us as soon as you can.
Yeah, and Jake's also asked, are you expecting the recruitment process to change post-COVID? At the moment, no. I've planned for post-COVID many times now, Jake, and every time we start to make a plan, it all kind of changes. I'm sure you've got as much understanding as I have of what's going to happen over the next few months. And for now, the best thing for us to do is carry on as we are. We've actually seen better results holding assessments virtually. One of the things I touched on earlier was our diversity strategy, and by holding assessments virtually, we've been able to open our application process to such a wide talent pool of people who maybe were prevented from applying because they couldn't afford to travel to us to an assessment. So for now, I think the recruitment process will remain the same post-COVID. Obviously, that final interview stage will take place in person post-COVID. Our managing directors do like to meet people in person. Some of them have still been conducting in-person assessments because they're able to maintain social distancing. And I think that is a stage which will definitely go back to an in-person assessment stage consistently across all of our regions.
And there's a question here about our Career Changer programme. Would you apply for the Career Changer programme if you're already an area manager in an organisation but seeking a new challenge, for example, like Amazon moving over to ALDI? Yes, absolutely. That's why we created our Career Changer programme, to bring in more skills and experience of managing and developing teams of people into our business. So yes, if you do have experience of managing people in another organisation, then absolutely we would want you to consider the Career Changer programme.
Phoebe's asked as well, can you apply for more than one region at a time? No, Phoebe's the answer. The way the recruitment works is we have a centralised team. So myself, Chloe, and there's 2 others in the team, and we read the application forms, the video interviews and the assessments for every single region in the UK. So we would consider you for all regions regardless of where you have applied. The region that you put down as your preference is the one that you want to work in the most. But if you were successful at group assessment and for whatever reason they weren't recruiting and you were still successful, we would just talk to you about other options. You wouldn't ever be discounted from the recruitment process. Okay.
And there's a question here about if it would be beneficial to talk about retail experience, even though you've only worked at a colleague level throughout uni. And Lance, I assume you mean talking about that experience either in your application form, in your video interview, at an assessment? And yes is the answer, absolutely. We would encourage you to draw upon all the experience that you've got, especially if that's retail experience. That's great, because that's so relevant to the role. But please don't worry, on the flip side, if you don't have retail experience, that doesn't mean you can't apply for a role with ALDI. But if you, whatever experience you've got, think about what your transferable skills are and what you can bring to the position and to the role here.
Annabelle's asked about the length of time for the recruitment process. So from start to finish, it could be as short as 6 weeks to 2 months. It depends how quickly you respond to all of the tasks. So the application form, you can take as long as you like on that. Then after the application form, there is a video interview. Now we set a 5-day deadline for that. So we give you 5 days to do it, and most of the time we will respond and review that application form and your video interview within a week. So it does tend to be quite a quick turnaround at that initial stage. Then after that is the group assessment. We do like to give you quite a few options to make sure you can book onto one that doesn't clash with university or work. And then after the group assessment, we aim to get back to all candidates within 2 weeks. So it does tend to be quite a quick process up to final interview. Now, our final interviews, it can vary between regions as to how long you might wait for your interview date. Some of our managing directors are involved in quite high-level projects, as you would expect, and tend to have maybe a little less time in their diaries than they might like to interview graduates. So it might be that you have to wait a month in between that group assessment stage and the final interview stage, but gives you quite a lot of opportunity to research the business, prepare those interview question answers that we mentioned earlier as well. So it does partly depend on whereabouts in the country you're applying for, but generally you should have gone through the entire process within, at the very most, I would say, 6 to 8 weeks.
Pradyumna has asked, I am currently in the process of finishing up my online application for an industrial placement opportunity. Am I too late, or is it normal? Is it okay to still apply? Yes, it is still okay to apply. We are still recruiting in some of our regions for the general management industrial placement, and we would encourage you to submit that as soon as you can. Just so that you can get started with the application process, and we can review your application as soon as possible. And we do review application forms usually within 3 or 4 days, 3 or 4 working days, if not even quicker at this moment in time. And that's what we're aiming to do anyway. We aim to get you through the recruitment process as soon as quickly as we can. So I'd encourage you to do that as soon as possible. In terms of our regions, some of our regions for the industrial placement role have stopped recruiting, so it might be the case that your first choice region is no longer recruiting, and so if you were successful within the role, we might and your first choice region wasn't recruiting, we would have that conversation with you just to see if you would be happy to consider another location if your first choice wasn't available anymore.
Thanks. There's a couple of questions about the group assessment as well, so I'll just answer them all at the same time if that's okay. So people are, I guess, just want to know a little bit more detail on what happens during the assessment. So the first thing that we do is allow you to introduce yourself to all the other candidates on the assessment. So at the very most, there'll be 7 other candidates on there with you, as well as maybe 1 or 2 assessors. We let you introduce each other so you feel a bit more comfortable working together throughout the afternoon or the morning. It's a chance for you to kind of get those initial nerves out of the way by talking about something that you're comfortable talking about yourself. Then after that, the first task is the presentation element of the day. Now, before you come to the assessment, we ask you to go and visit a store or conduct online research, whichever you feel more comfortable with, because we pre-warn you that there will be a presentation as part of the assessment. On the day, we'll allocate you a topic at random, and it could be anything from our social responsibility to our branding or the way we market certain products, and then you'll have 10 minutes to read through the notes you've made from your store visit or your research and come up with a 3-minute presentation that you'll give back to us and the rest of the group. Then after everyone's presentations is when we pause for about 10-minute break, chance for you to, turn your camera off, go forget about the first half of the morning or afternoon and just get refreshed and refocused. And then the second half is an individual task, which consists of reading a briefing pack, and then you present your personal solution, and then you work with a team of other people to come up with a group solution to the problem we've posed you in that briefing pack. So hopefully that gives you as much detail as I possibly can without telling you exactly what would happen at a group assessment. Okay.
And Sonia has asked, do I need to provide some sort of proof that I am on track to achieve a 2-1? No, you don't, Sonia. We just take your word for that. So you would just need to pop that on your application form. But of course, as George touched upon before, you would need to have completed your degree and before actually starting the role with us, and you would need to show evidence that you have a 2-1 degree after you've graduated before you start with us. And there's another question I'll just answer above that from Rustam, who says, sorry, I have 2 years of work experience, including 1 year of management experience, and due to graduate, what would you advise, graduate scheme or career changer? And for a career changer program, we look for candidates to have at least 2 years experience in a management and leadership role. So we would, based upon what you've mentioned there, Rustam, I'd probably advise you to have a look at the graduate scheme. That might be better suited to you. But obviously, the management experience that you do already have would be really valuable, and I would definitely encourage you to draw upon that experience in answering our application form and throughout the recruitment process as well.
Someone's also asked, is there a preference given to ALDI employees who've referred candidates? So I'm guessing that's when you've started your application, you've put down that you know someone in the business. There isn't any preference given to anyone within the recruitment process. We treat all candidates fairly, so it's not going to mean your application gets actioned any quicker or that you will be progressed to a recruitment stage if we don't think you're capable of, or we don't think you should progress to that recruitment stage. You'll just get treated like any other candidate. Equally, internal candidates who apply have the same level of treatment. So if someone's a store assistant and they wanted to apply for the graduate scheme, we would just treat them like every other candidate as well. There's no instances of someone getting preferential treatment in the recruitment process.
There's a question here about type of degree. So does it matter what type of degree you have or are working towards? No, it doesn't matter at all. We accept any degree discipline for both our career changer and graduate programs, as well as our industrial placements as well. So it doesn't matter what degree you have. So please don't be put off if you haven't done a business related degree, for example, and all degree disciplines are very much welcome to apply.
Lovely. Well, it doesn't look like we've had many other questions. Someone's just asked, I've been recently made redundant. Will this put me at a disadvantage? Absolutely not. You're more than welcome to apply no matter what reason it is that you're looking for a new job. We don't ask you to specify that on the application form either. So there's no, we don't ask you to disclose that to us. If you are, interested in a role with us, I realise we didn't put that on the presentation, but we've got our careers portal that you can go to. I think it's just aldicareers.co.uk, and that's where you can register your interest for any of the roles in the business. So it might not necessarily be the graduate role, it could be a role in buying, merchandising, whichever it is that you are interested in. You can go on and look at all the different roles we've got at head office, as well as our graduate scheme and our industrial placement schemes, and think about what it is you want to do. Register your interest, and then you'll get notified when that role does become available. But if there aren't any more questions, we will leave it at that. If one fails to get a graduate area manager role, is it possible to apply for a less qualified role shortly? Yes. The way our the recruitment system works is that you won't be able to apply for a role with more responsibility, but you can apply for a role with a lower level of responsibility. So, for example, if you applied for the area manager scheme, you would be able to apply to be a deputy store manager, an assistant store manager, a store assistant, whatever it was you personally were interested in. You can do that without any kind of waiting period there. Okay. Fab. Oh, there's more questions. Just every time I go to say there's no more questions, there's more. I'll let Chloe answer the last few.
Let's see. So Lucy's asked, you mentioned your team reads through all stages of the application to decide who goes through to the next stage. Does this include the SJT or other tests? No, Lucy, those tests are pre-prepared tests. Our SJTs and our Smart Styles are ALDI created tests. And so when you answer those questions, they will be scored automatically. So it's not something that a person would need to mark. And so that's why that is done automatically. But after those stages, everything is looked after by myself, George, and the rest of the team here.
Great. And then Owen said the video interview processes for you was very unnatural recording yourself. Would you be able to change this for next year? Unfortunately, it's not something that we're looking to change, just due to the amount of candidates that we have going through that video interview stage. So it's probably upwards of 4,000 people at the moment since September that we've seen a video interview for, just for the graduate scheme. So getting to meet those people or have a telephone conversation with them, it's just not something we have the capacity to do. So that's why we have the pre-recorded video interview, to give you an opportunity to showcase your personality, for us to meet you at our convenience. You know, sometimes we're reviewing these video interviews on weekends at 7 in the morning, 7 at night, so fitting that in and making sure we're getting to virtually meet everyone, this is the best way for us to do it, rather than having a telephone interview where we don't have the time to fit everyone in and do that. So unfortunately it will stay like that. I think most of our video interview questions are on the internet, though. If you do give it a bit of a Google, I'm sure you could figure out what you'll be asked, and you could pre-prepare your answers. I know a lot of people do that way. Nice to meet you again, Laura, as well. Thank you for taking part in the session this afternoon. Someone else has asked what kind of questions are in the video interview. Again, I'm not going to give them away. The first one's quite easy though. It's, can you just confirm your name? So that's one ticked off already. Then I would research the business. She will get asked a couple of questions on ALDI, and then there's a few questions about leadership and maybe times that you've worked towards a challenging situation or set yourself a high standard. So think about those kinds of themes before you take your video interview. You do get time in between all the questions to prepare. Sorry. So if you thought about that before sitting down to do it, you'll be in a good position, I would say, to complete that interview.
We've just got a few more minutes left. Sam has asked about if this is a job for someone who likes to work routine. He said Sam says leadership versus working efficiently, driving around to stores regularly. I think what you're asking is every day the same, or is it not? The answer is definitely not. It's very varied. The role, you won't be doing the same thing every day. You'll be out and about. You'll be driving to your stores. You'll be meeting your store managers, store teams, meeting other area managers, meeting your store ops director. So it is a varied role, and obviously retail is a really fast-paced environment. No 2 days are the same. You never know what's going to happen. All sorts of things will happen invariably. Some things will go wrong, and you'll have to think on your feet and solve that problem. And so it's definitely a role for someone who likes the challenge, who likes variety in their role, and likes being able to get involved with lots of different aspects of the business, and managing people is the key element of the role, definitely, because you'll have a lot of people to support and guide and develop as part of the role.
Thanks, Chloe. And then just to close the session, thank you all for taking part. Thank you for your questions. Hopefully it has been of use to some of you, and you've got some insight into what you can prepare for next year, or if you want to look at other options within a career at ALDI, I definitely encourage you to go on the website as well. Hopefully we'll get to virtually meet you all again soon if you do decide to apply and take part in an application and a group assessment with us as well. But all the very best of luck for the future in the next couple of months. I hope you all enjoy the bit of freedom we're about to get, and I hope you all enjoy your summer as well before knuckling down to find a graduate role. Okay, so I will speak to you all soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.